Welcome to Points in the Podcast. I'm Elias Schuster, joined by Matt Rooney. I feel like I need to come up with some sort of more fun intro thing to say, like maybe some phrase. It's always the same thing. I'm just introducing myself, introducing
I think you
you.
just got to keep it consistent. It doesn't have to be
Okay.
flashy, but I feel like every good podcast just has like the same exact intro every time.
That's
So
what I'm
just keep it
saying. I got to think
consistent.
of
I think
something
that's
unique.
fine.
I'm just saying. I just introduce myself. I just say your name, my name. I got to think of something a little different. Maybe I'll just start with
It's the off season for us too. We're experimenting things. We're tinkering parts. We don't have to have all of our stuff together till October 20, whatever. We got some time. We got time to figure it out, retool, put some pieces together, and that's what we're doing here.
Yeah, so okay, good point. Thank you for the moral support. Thanks for reminding me.
I got you. We're podcast partners. That's my job.
Yeah, exactly.
You're running the show. I'm the guy coming off the bench who's got to give 15 good minutes here. Be a good teammate. Play some hustle ball. Dive for some loose balls. Be a good teammate. That's why I'm here, and that's why I'm trying to play my role.
I love to hear that. It reminds me of my, I've mentioned a few times on the show, but my rec league team, we had our playoffs this past week. We came in as the bottom seed, unfortunately. However, we won a playoff game, upset the first round.
There we go.
Yeah, but then we ended up losing to the defending champs. It got ugly.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with going down to the champs.
I know, and I also had a fantasy basketball draft that same night. I had to text the guys. I had to go, hey, this is not happening because guess what? We won a game. But they were all supportive. They said never apologize for winning. I appreciate that.
Winners never apologize.
Yeah, that's what I learned. So okay, we have not too much to get to. It'll be a little bit of a shorter show this time around. Obviously, it's still the dog days, still late August. Slowly but surely.
I feel like we got blessed the last 2 weeks with some big off-season news, and it was like, oh, this is cool, nice. We got some stuff to talk about. This week is just the opposite.
Right. Yeah. This week is the same old what you kind of expect out of your typical NBA off-season days in August. So there's a few things. We'll start with weekly bullet points, and then I just want to end the show just because one of the bigger pieces of news, and yes, this is an NBA show, but we want to talk about the basketball world as a whole. And the FIBA World Cup got off to a start overseas just this morning. So a lot of teams started their play. Team USA will play tomorrow. I believe that today's the 25th. So their first game's against New Zealand. So their game is coming up here soon. But there are plenty of games that have already been played. We won't necessarily recap those, but Nikola Vucevic for Montenegro, he took down Memphis with a big 27-point performance, and they beat
Vucevic back.
Yeah, they beat Mexico by 20 or so. I think Latvia had a big win, which was interesting to see. So it stinks because some of these games, like we're sleeping, it's 3 a.m. and they're getting off and going. I saw Karl-Anthony Towns had a big game, so some of this has to be just go back and watch the highlights.
Who does Karl-Anthony Towns play for? Canada?
He's Dominican Republic.
Did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, that's. So this is what you'll learn later in the show if you stick with us, or you could always, I guess, jump ahead if you want.
Is this like the World Baseball Classic where like Matt Harvey was pitching for Team Italy, like where
there'll be some
you have to have some sort of like heritage. You don't have to actually be from there.
I don't know exactly. That's a good question. I don't know exactly the criteria needed. However, it is that way in terms of when you turn on the game and you go, oh, that NBA player's on this team. Mm-hmm. And that's why I thought we can at least end today's show by naming some of the guys that you didn't know were on teams. And if you try to go and watch some games over the next few days, and you can, turn on the game knowing that at least one NBA player you know the name of will be there. So we'll recap that at the end for you, just in case you want to sit down, or maybe you're having some insomnia, you can't sleep. So what do? Turn on, I don't know, China versus Serbia and check out that game, and then you're gonna know a few guys in it. So we'll touch base with that at the end. But first, as always, let's kick things off with our weekly bullet points. We're just gonna quick hit some of the biggest topics of this past week, and we're going to start with an exhausting topic. James Harden. The name has come out of my mouth.
More James Harden, my favorite. I love that.
The name has come out of my mouth, and NBA analysts, podcasters, writers, whatever, it's come out of their mouths more than they have wanted so far this season, and that continued this week with him being one of the only pieces of offseason news. He was hit with a $100,000 fine for his comments on Daryl Morey. We've talked about those comments in the past on other shows. He's for a quick rundown. This is now has many layers to it, but What he was kind of fined for was standing in front of an audience in China,
Like
calling Daryl.
old kids too.
Yeah, I believe it was 14-year-old kids too.
It
Yeah,
was like it wasn't even the media; it was kids.
yeah. If you want to really prove your point, just just
Oh
say
God.
yeah, make your presence felt by saying your truth in front of 14-year-olds. He spoke out against Daryl Morey, calling him a liar, saying that he would never play for an organization that Morey is a part of again. Morey kind of thought nothing of this in terms of pressure to trade him. He made clear that he still expects Harden to return for training camp. Um, Harden kept saying words. He said some stuff back in Houston. I don't know. You could easily go look it up or go listen to a past show because we've talked about it enough. All you really need to know now is that the NBA said no more of these public comments. Here's $100,000 fine, which for the NBA that's a hefty sum of money to throw at a player. I know it might not feel like a lot when these players are making 30, 40, $50 million a year, especially a guy like Harden who has made plenty of money throughout his career. But 100,000 in NBA terms is a pretty large fine, and it speaks to kind of what Adam Silver, the commissioner, wanted to instill earlier in this offseason when he came out and kind of slapped Damian Lillard on the wrist. If you remember, Lillard was out there with his agent. The word was that they were telling people, don't trade for Lillard, don't try to make offers. He just wants to go to Miami. If you do try to trade for Lillard, he's not going to play for your franchise. And so Adam Silver sent out a memo to all 30 NBA teams making clear that kind of rhetoric is not allowed. If a team trades for you and you end up with that team, and you need to honor your contract, you have to do what your contract says. Requesting a trade, that's fine. You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to have conversations with your front office, just like Harden is allowed to request a trade. He's allowed to even put some pressure on the front office to try to get a trade done. However, he can't kind of suggest that he's not going to play for a certain team and use that kind of verbiage. It's not exactly parallel to the Lillard situation, but I think, to me at least, I think those are related a bit, just because the NBA is like, this is getting too crazy in the public eye. This is just supposed to be, okay, you asked for a trade, fine, now you got to wait and see if that trade gets done.
Do you think the fine, like the harsh fine, obviously it's warranted because Harden just got incredibly overly aggressive in that situation? Is that like a kind of a little bit of a warning shot to Damian Lillard too? Obviously, the memo was a warning shot to Damian Lillard, but is that like hey, like I'm not really messing around here? Like there's similar situations. Obviously, Lillard hasn't gotten nearly as ugly, but like, hey, I've warned you, and if this keeps happening, like look what I just did, James
Well, I think
Harden.
to an extent,
I'm not
sure.
going to be afraid to do this to you too.
Right. I think, yeah. I mean, I just think in general, this idea, like we've seen it now with Harden, we've seen it with Lillard. We saw it get a little bit weird with KD there, but then KD did the right thing and just said, okay, if you're not going to trade me now, I'm going to play, and
Yeah,
I'll play
KD
well.
handled it the most like an adult.
Right. And then he just decided to play because he knew that and playing was in the best interest of him and also in the best interest of the organization, and
Yeah,
it
if you go
allowed
out
for
and
both
play well,
parties
then
to
increases your trade stock, and then it's easier. It's a lot easier to move you. Like it's not.
right.
I understand that James Harden might not want to help the Sixers, but playing well helps himself more than sitting there and doing nothing does, because it's just going to make the Sixers not want to move him because they're going to keep feeling they're not getting enough value, and
Right.
there's not going to be nearly as many suitors. But if he goes out and plays really well for the first month or two of the year, a lot of contending teams are going to come calling.
Yeah, and I don't know how much I do agree with that. I don't know how drastically KD or Harden their market would change if they did if like KD decided to sit out, whatever. I'm sure the Suns still would have been interested, things like that. But what it also would kind of allows is, I mean, KD got hurt, so it's a little bit different, but it allows you to kind of to enter that new environment and be ready to play. Like if Harden
Yeah.
doesn't play and then gets traded, in January or February, he needs a ramp up period. Yes, the expectation is that he's working out off the floor, but yeah, but we all know that live NBA game action is not the same as just is working out behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to need more time to get to kick things into high gear, and teams are going to want guys to come over and be fresher. And Harden himself, or just these players that want to end up on, if he wants to go to the Clippers and compete for a championship, it's in his best interest to arrive to the Clippers and be ready to go right
Yeah,
away, and not be
exactly.
able, instead of having this ramp up period that he's going to need, because there's already going to take a couple games for him to get comfortable playing with new teammates. But yeah, I mean, long story short, and answering your original question, I do think that yes, this is Silver kind of putting his foot down and reminding everyone, I'm not afraid to hand out these fines. But I also, the big question, of course, is how much of these fines do they care? Like Harden, how much does he? While the statement on a broader level, like
the
we said,
statement to the media and like on paper looks like it's oh wow, $100,000, but like I was thinking about it earlier this morning, and like James Harden makes $36 million this year. That's not even waiting. Throughout his career, he's made so
Harden has
much more. Like
$100,000 worth of chicken wings at strip clubs.
exactly,
So I don't think it's not.
$100,000 is a lot of money, but like to him, that is, I mean, that's like a round of golf for you or me.
Yeah, maybe it's
like,
one
okay.
one less night out at the club and ordering a few less drinks. But it's not anything big for him. So will it really make an impact to him? I don't know. But of course, this is a first defense thing. So it's like, if he keeps speaking out, if he keeps making some outlandish comments, then of course there could be more disciplinary action taken. But I also don't think that it would have to get really ugly for us to be talking anything about suspensions or whatever.
Yeah.
So if he wants to keep racking up fines, that's something that he can do, I guess. But yeah, it speaks more, it speaks more to how ugly this kind of Harden Sixers situation has become, and how exhausting it continues to be, because I just want it to be over, and I don't want to focus anymore on Harden. I just would either play for the Sixers or go to the Clippers. I don't know. Let's move on. The next thing here is the second player that we already mentioned, who we continue to also be exhausted by his name being in conversations around the league, is Damian Lillard. Of course, he spoke this week with Anscape's Mark Spears. He just interviewed Lillard kind of about the offseason and about his commitment to the Trailblazers and his longing for a trade to the Heat. And the only real thing that I want to note from this interview is, and it was the only thing that people may have already seen that have kind of started to trend online, is that he was asked to comment on the Trailblazers and just said, what's your relationship with them? What are your thoughts on how things have handled? And long story short, Lillard refused. He said that he, does not want to talk about the Trailblazers, and he has no comment on them and the organization. I think, he prefaced that by saying, he'll always care for the Trailblazers, but he didn't want to continue talking about the whole situation. So
I think that's a fair way to handle it.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. It's just it's like, it did add a little more drama, a little more fuel to the fire. Like, I don't know. For me, when I heard it, I don't know why things have to end this way for Lillard in Portland. I do believe that that Portland fans still obviously appreciate him and love him, and I think he will always have a very good relationship with the city when he comes back and things like that. But this still isn't the send off that I think you would want to see from him. He has handled this situation, I think, pretty weird, just because he, originally was the guy that was like, all you guys talk about how I want a trade. I never wanted a trade. Like, I don't want to trade. I want to be in Portland. And then, okay, he changes gears, and I don't blame him for changing gears, because yes, they drafted Scoot Henderson. Yes, they weren't speeding up their timeline. They were slowing it down to try to rebuild. So I understand his desire to leave, but then it's that everything since he's kind of requested that trade has been just weird. We have bizarrely handled, in my opinion. And the fact that he only wants to go to Miami doesn't help the situation. I think he should be open to going other places, just because I understand Miami's been a finals team, 2 of the past 4 years. I get that they're one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. I also get that the culture fit would make a lot of sense for Damian Lillard. But I think a team like the Brooklyn Nets, who might be interested in him, even a team like Philly, like, there's other destinations he can go, and I think still have a pretty good run or good shot at being a consistent playoff team. So I don't know. It just continues to be a pretty just like the Harden situation. It's bizarre.
I feel like it's been one of the more like respectful trade demands like I can remember because
Okay.
like he went back and forth on it for a while too. Like obviously he said he wanted them to use that third pick to get them a more win now asset, and he didn't really want to have to mentor Scoot
Which you can't
Henderson.
blame him for wanting them to do that. Yeah.
Exactly. I don't blame him. And like he clearly did want to win in Portland, and then Portland kind of made that decision. Like, I don't think we can do that because I mean, I'm assuming they tried to move that number 3 overall pick, or at least explored certain pieces they wanted that they thought might fit perfectly alongside Lillard. That didn't work out, and kind of like, all right, I gave you the one thing I wanted you to do. You didn't do it. You kind of went the opposite direction. And then even after that, he did kind of flip flop a couple times. Like first he wanted to trade, then he wanted back, and then once July 1st hit, 50 minutes or whatever the hell it was after they signed Jeremy Grant, he's like, no, actually, I want to go. So like I feel like he's actually like he's been. It seems like he was actually torn about it for a while, and then like when he came time to actually request the trade, he's like, man, I'm actually going to do this after flip flopping for a while.
Yeah, I
Um,
think the beef no, like, and I totally get that, and I think that he, he
I also
has
get why
given.
he wants Miami, but like, don't just come out and say that right away because that is a little bit of a. That's the one weird, not weird, but like guy who hasn't been in this situation before might not be thinking as much about the organization. That's kind of a middle finger to the Blazer organization. You really put them in a really bad spot. You can tell them privately that you can't make that public. That doesn't help anybody.
Right, like, that's and I think that's where the beef or whatever would lie
Yeah,
is
that
that.
part's fair.
Right, yeah, and I think you're right is in terms of he's given a lot to that organization. The organization made the decision for him that they were going to take a step back. They weren't gonna trade that number 3 pick, and, Lillard he missed almost the entire season 2 seasons ago, and he looked fantastic this year, but he is a small guard who is aging, and, I still think he will have plenty of good years left in him just because of his shooting
Same.
ability, but, in terms of how much time he has to still be competing for championships, it's obviously, dwindling down a bit. So when you see an organization, and then it doesn't, the organization went and selected Scoot Henderson, which is pretty much playing the same position as you,
Yeah.
seeing the two of them existing in the backcourt just was a bit difficult.
I
So they
wonder if
already
it was
tried to.
Brandon Miller that if it would have made somewhat of a difference. Like, all right, we didn't move the pick, but like this is a guy on paper that kind of is a fit for what we need and it might play
Yeah.
well with me. Like, I
What if
wonder if that would have made any bit of difference for Damian Lillard. Like, all right, like we couldn't get that proven veteran ready asset, but we got a guy with a super high ceiling who, fits with me on the court.
maybe, I don't know. I just think that the philosophy in general of taking a young player and not using that asset to, get more veteran help and win now help probably is, just the main reason. Like, yes, I think Brandon Miller organically just would make more sense. Scoot was the right pick though.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah,
Totally
and
was. I'm just saying, playing
no, I
devil's
know what you
advocate
get.
here,
Yeah.
like had Charlotte taken Scoot and Brandon Miller been there, does that change
Could it be
anything?
easier for Dame to do what like Durant did and
Yeah.
decide,
At
you
least
know,
play, start like, all right, I'll give this a shot, but like I'm not by any means fully committed to
yeah,
this.
maybe that would have been an easier decision to make, but I still think we're reaching at the. I still think that the outcome would have been the same,
Probably.
um, and yeah. So I overall, I don't totally get what you're saying. I think it was the idea of him wanting to trade is totally reasonable in my opinion. I just think the fact that him finally deciding to request one and then narrowing the playing field as much as he had and saying it's just Miami. So here's the thing, Portland. Like he loves Portland. He talks about how much he loved being in Portland. But now he's like, well, I loved you, Portland, but I want you to take a very crappy return to send me to Miami because Miami, at the end of the day, like is not going to be able to offer a package that feels appropriate for Damian Lillard unless they are getting other third teams involved. And if there's a third team involved, what's the incentive for that third team? What are they getting? They're getting Tyler Hero, perhaps. Like,
Yeah.
that's the Hero thing isn't. There's maybe a team out there who wants Hero, and he's still a very young player, and that could be an interesting get. And I do think that's probably how this will end up when the season starts and at the end, pressure is on and the trade gets done. Hero likely ends up somewhere else, but I don't know. It's just not. There's the incentive for the third team isn't clear right now, and it's going to take some time to figure out how this goes. I do think when training camp ramps up, if there is a trade that gets done first, it'll be Lillard's just because the Harden, just because we've seen Daryl Morey play it tough and hold things out. and maybe Lillard's situation does resolve quicker. But I guess we'll see. Training camp just naturally the reality of the season begins to set in for people, and I think we'll at least see the trade talks ramp back up a little bit more in earnest. Okay, next thing that we should touch on here. I'm going to do two actually quick hitters. I had this listed after, but we'll do two quick hitters before we move on to the last bullet point that I think we might want to discuss a little bit further. First thing is the Lakers officially announced on Mamba Day, which was as of recording, this was yesterday. This was 8/24. Mamba, Kobe Bryant's 2 numbers. It was Mamba Day. They officially announced that they will unveil a statue for him outside of, I'm going to call it Staples Center, just like I'll always call it the Sears Tower.
Yeah.
It's not, that's what it is. They will unveil a new statue for Kobe Bryant. The news of the statue isn't particularly new. It was something that even I believe he was working on after he retired with the franchise, trying to decide what something like that could look like. But knowing that it will now unveil, I believe it was on February 8th. It's before their regular season game against the Denver Nuggets at home. That is when the statue will officially unveil. There'll probably be an opening, a ceremony, all that stuff. So just a nice moment there. It looked good. It was coming. I think a lot of Laker fans in particular, but a lot of fans, just Kobe fans, were kind of waiting to see what that would look like. And now we have a date for when we can expect that. That will be this season. And like I said, it'll be on February 8th. So that is something to look at. The last little thing, I don't want to spend much time on this because it was probably one of the stupidest storylines of the week. And I also just don't want to give this person the attention that they crave. But the Stephen A. Smith, Lonzo Ball
thing,
situation. If you haven't seen it, the very brief rundown for you would be that, and I don't know how you didn't see it because this was because there's nothing to talk about in the NBA universe. This was primarily the thing that was talked about in the NBA universe this week. But Stephen A. Smith said on First Take, he made a comment talking about Lonzo Ball, and at the end of his comment, kind of said that that Lonzo can't stand up out of a chair. Like he's heard that Lonzo has trouble even getting up out of a chair because of his knee problems. So Lonzo Ball he responds with a video on the internet. I think all in good fun. You can tell, it was kind of just a silly thing. Lonzo calls out Stephen A. While he's standing up and down from a chair using just the leg in which his knee was injured and got the surgery on, telling Stephen A., don't spew false information kind of thing, and saying he's coming back and that kind of stuff. Then after that, it should have just ended. Or, if Stephen
A. can't not get the last word in, though.
Yeah, and Stephen A. Smith, he goes back on ESPN. He could have just said, Lonzo, you're right. You're standing up out of the chair. Good for you, but you still have a long road to recovery, which no one's going to deny. Like, Lonzo still is obviously off the whole year. We don't know if he's going to come back. His health situation is still very up in the air. But the point was, you said I can't stand up out of a chair. I can do that. That's all Lonzo was saying. Like I said, in good fun. Stephen A. decided to take it up another level, go on ESPN, and you can go and watch his response. He first was calling out internet trolls, for saying that Lonzo owns Stephen A. But then he was very much calling out Lonzo as well, bringing up Lonzo's injury track record. He also went on his podcast, did the same thing, talked about. He was like, "Do you want me to contact your doctors? I could talk about your doctors. You're not healthy. You don't be tricking people that you're healthy." But
he wasn't saying he was healthy. He just said he can get up out of a chair.
Lonzo Ball never said he was healthy. He just said, "Look, I'm not as not healthy or unhealthy as you say.
I can walk."
Yeah, stop. Don't just go spewing that I literally can't walk or I'm crawling, like that kind of thing. Yeah. I can do that. I can stand up out of a chair. So, I'm trying to recover. That's all Lonzo, I think, was saying. And then Stephen A. turned it into this whole thing where Lonzo was saying he was healthy, which he never was. Like I said, I don't want to get too much into this. It was all pretty dumb, but I don't like the idea personally of going after and attacking and making a spectacle, if you will, over a guy who had 3 surgeries in 14 months and may never play basketball again and is simply trying to, trying to just make sure that he can live his life moving forward without
guy's got enough on his plate already. You don't have to kick a man while he's down.
Right. So I think the first 2 things were all fun and games. Stephen A. said what he said. Lonzo made his funny video. Could have just been over there. And then what happened after with Stephen A.'s commentary, it just
We've all had it's all like we friends are giving each other crap, and then some friend
Someone takes it
says
too far.
something like overly personal that goes way too far. It's like, dude, what the hell? Like, what are you
Yeah,
talking
good
about?
point. Yeah.
We're messing around here. Why are you bringing that up?
Right.
Is what it is.
It was taking it too far, and we're talking about someone's health, and I just think it's always weird to attack somebody for being unhealthy. Like
Hmm.
and being unhealthy in a way that it's not
They
Lonzo's
can't
fault.
control.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
can't control. His knee problems is not something that he can control. It's not like
yeah.
he was purposely,
It's not like Jay
bashing his
Williams
knee
where he
against
was
the wall.
riding a motorcycle in the off
Yeah,
season
even
really
that. Yeah.
fast. It's just Lonzo, like it's something he can't control. It's his body breaking down on him.
Yeah, he wasn't jumping knee first into an unfilled pool. Like this wasn't so that
No.
Lonzo was he's been trying to stay healthy. So that's it. That's all we're going to talk about with that because we don't need to give it too much time of day. Okay, last little thing here that happened this week was a profile in the New York Times about Giannis Antetokounmpo came out, which just right off the bat, I was surprised that this story even came out. It's not that Giannis stays out of the limelight or the media. He does commercials. He's front and center, but we don't really see this type of story, this type of work come out about Giannis. I would say he is more of a somewhat reserved guy, or like interviews are seemingly kind of hard to get with him at this level. Obviously, during the season is a little bit different, but this is a very extensive New York Times profile. Let me give the I want to give the writer here a little bit of make sure I mention her name, Tanya Ganguly. I want to make sure if I might be saying that right, but
Sure.
anyway, she wrote this profile on him. He talks just about his career in general, his aspirations, his family. His family is very important to him. There's many Antetokounmpo brothers, so overall, well written, fun to read if you want to learn a little bit more about him. But the main takeaway here, the thing that kind of blew up, and you may have already seen comments shared online, is just that he is, he talked about an extension with Milwaukee, which he's technically up for, I believe, next offseason. I think it was written in the post that he can sign or in a few weeks, actually, he'll be eligible for a 3-year extension worth $173 million. He made clear, and rightfully so, that he is not going to sign that. And it's because I think financially, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it probably wouldn't make sense for him to sign that because I think if he waited a year, he could sign an even bigger deal. Next summer, it's one of those situations. It's like when Zach LaVine didn't sign an extension a few years ago. Of course, I'm a Chicago Bulls guy, so I'm going to go back to that. But he didn't sign an extension 2 years ago. Everyone's like, oh my God, he's going to hit free agency. And then we learned, he did hit free agency, but we learned, like, we always knew he could make more money if he
Yeah.
decided to just go that route. So, the decision not to sign the extension isn't necessarily a major surprise here. But what he kind of proceeded to say after that is a little bit interesting. So I'm going to pull up just some of those quotes quickly so I can have the exact words here for everybody.
I'm intrigued. I'm on pins. I didn't see this quote.
So okay, this was the kind of the first thing that caught my eye, and I believe caught people's eyes across the interwebs in the NBA world. He was talking about the coaching change, and the Bucks lost the first round last year to the Heat. Obviously, Giannis was hurt for the majority of that series. Even when he came back, he wasn't himself. It was a back injury, and then they end up firing Coach Budenholzer, which Giannis, I think, has been well documented, had a good relationship with. They hired Toronto Raptors assistant Adrian Griffin. And, they were just talking about, why is Giannis unsure about signing an extension? Why might he want to wait past the reasons for just making more money down the road? And so he commented that you've got to see the dynamics. He said how the coach is going to be, how we're going to be together. At the end of the day, I feel like all my teammates know and the organization knows that I want to win a championship. As long as we're on the same page with that, and you know me, and we go together to win a championship, I'm all for it. The moment we feel like, oh yeah, we're trying to rebuild, and then the post says he paused briefly before continuing. There will never be hard feelings with the Milwaukee Bucks. I believe that we've had 10 unbelievable years, and there's no doubt that I gave everything for the city of Milwaukee. Everything. Every single night, even when I'm hurt, I'm a Milwaukee Buck. I bleed green. I know this. This is my team, and it's going to be my forever team. I don't forget people that were there for me and allowed me to be great and to showcase who I am to the world and give me a platform. but we have to win another one. So then the article goes on to mention that, he has had a goal of playing for the same team, and mentions guys like Dirk, Kobe, Tim Duncan as players that, he looks up to in that sense. Then he comments, but at the end of the day, being a winner, it's over that goal. Winning a championship comes first. I don't want to be 20 years on the same team and don't win another one. So at the end of the day, that's not unreasonable. That is completely
that's very fair.
Yeah,
and I don't think a Milwaukee Bucks fan could think that's unfair.
Right, and you understand you don't want to be in 20 years and win one championship. That's kind of all he's that's his main point here. But at the same time, it clearly leaves the door open. And I think the beginning of this quote in particular, when he's talking about you have to see the dynamics, you have to see how the coach fits, you got to make sure everybody's on the same page, before pausing briefly and having to kind of reconnect it. You could tell he refocuses and goes back to, I love Milwaukee, don't worry, blah, blah, blah. But that first section of the quote where he's talking about everyone being on the same page, and I get it, you have a new coach. You want to make sure that things are going to go over well. And it's a big difference because obviously they had Budenholzer there for a long time. They've kept the same core, but now it's the same core with a new coach. And Chris Middleton is aging and Brook Lopez is aging. Chris Middleton was not the same player that he was a year ago. So there's a lot here that needs the Bucks in general are kind of reaching a point where
they're going to need a retool soon.
Yeah, they're going to be at an impasse because they did re-sign Chris Middleton this offseason. They re-signed Brook Lopez. Brook Lopez's deal is a hefty deal for only 2 seasons. Chris Middleton's is a longer-term deal. But, he's, like I said, he's getting older. Drew Holiday very much is getting older, even though Drew Holiday's been great the past 2 years. And the supporting cast, has been hot and cold over the past couple of years. So there's a natural time for a retooling to take place. And I think the question is, how are they going to do that on the fly? How are they going to continue to surround him with, the right co-stars? Or can they do that? And is it going to be a retool and not a slight rebuild of sorts? What if he does get hurt one year and they fall, like a Lillard situation almost, and then they fall into a situation where they move up a few picks in the lottery and boom, they end up with a player like the Warriors ending up with James Wiseman. If the star gets hurt, team stinks. Then you have a high lottery pick. What are you doing with that high lottery pick? Do they reach a point where they take a young player, and is Giannis going to be willing to work with that young player? Or do they trade that pick? Whatever. So I think there's a point that needs to happen here because Giannis is only, 28 years old. So he obviously knows that he's got a lot of time to still compete at a very high level. I'm trying to confirm here. My computer decided not to pull it up.
28 sounds right.
28 years old. And so there's a lot of time there's a lot of time left for him to compete at a very high level, and the team needs to ensure that that they continue to take advantage of that. So are these quotes insinuating that I think Giannis is going to be gone, very soon? No.
Giannis to the Bulls confirmed.
Yeah, Giannis to the Bulls confirmed. But I'm sure that this is an exciting bit of news for teams like the Dallas Mavericks, for the Miami Heat, for these teams that have already been mentioned, the New York Knicks, as hoping they could have a chance to lure him away.
Hey, Giannis has specifically mentioned the Bulls.
Oh yeah, well no, he has. There was a quote I reshared it the other day. There was a quote actually almost a year ago to the day, where I don't remember exactly what this interview was for. I think it was a partnership that he was doing, but he was just kind of asked about Chicago, and he said that, hey, one day maybe he plays in Chicago. He's always loved the Chicago Bulls kind of thing. So he kept the door open. It's not out of the question, but
never say never.
Yeah, you can never say never. But yeah, point being that this was kind of the first time, and there may have been other comments here and there that he did really swing the door open and put some pressure on Milwaukee and say, because I think the first extension where there was some drama made about whether or not he would decide to stay with Milwaukee, I don't think that was ever really a story. I think they could offer him the most money. I think he was going to stay there. I don't think it was a major question mark. He won the championship right after. So this time around, it's like, can you continue to prove to him that you can keep this championship team together? And can you, is this coaching change the right move and all that stuff? So the door is definitely open. I think it's proving that he's thinking long-term with his career. He's thinking about where things might go. And And it's at least something to keep an eye on moving forward. Because if the team has another first round exit this year, then it's really really a story. Like if you have him on your team,
Yeah, then the
least
heat gets turned up. No pun intended, quite a bit.
right. Exactly. So I think overall though that was like the juiciest quote that people were sharing that people were a bit that I think Bucks fans maybe were a little bit alarmed about. I'm just skimming through here to make sure that there was
It's definitely a red flag, and I think it puts a little bit more pressure on the team this year, the organization this year. Things kind of flame out early again. Like, do those questions start to rise up a little bit more?
Yeah, and at the end of the day, that's what I really do think. The point is, it's we see people do it all the time. We've seen LeBron do it millions of times. Like it's publicly putting some pressure on the franchise to say, you need to make sure you're working hard to continue to keep me here. And I think for now that's all it is. But it just lets you know that he's continuing to do that. Here's the last quote I found. Here's the last quote that I'll share. He said, next summer, it would make more sense for both parties to sign a deal. Even then, I don't know. I would not be the best version of myself if I don't know that everybody's on the same page. Everyone's going for a championship. Everyone's going to sacrifice time away from their families like I do. And if I don't feel that way, I'm not signing. So that's another big quote in reference to even next offseason when the money will go up.
All fair, though. Everything's fit.
All fair, just putting pressure on teams on the team to make sure that they continue to do everything in their ability to set them up for success. And you can't blame it.
Everything. He's going about this very fairly, and I think the right way. And I don't think anything he said there was wrong.
Right. It'll make some fans scared, but that's sometimes what you got to do. And he's just being honest. He's just being honest. He's given a good run to Milwaukee so far, and he will. I would say it's more likely than not he continues to still do that.
Yeah.
But you got to sometimes make sure, especially after losing in the first round, like he needs to. I'm sure for him too. I need to know that, like, if I get hurt for a game or two, like our whole thing,
our team's gonna be fine.
Yeah. Or our team can at least help us get through a first round series. And I know Miami ended up going to the finals. I get it. Miami ended up a much better.
But still, it was an 8 seed.
But yeah, it was still an 8 seed, and it was still should have been more of a competition. Those games, if you watch them in particular, it was kind of scary to see how much they struggled, and that wasn't a problem.
He just kind of bullied them.
Yeah, and we know that wasn't a problem they had in the championship season because Giannis also got hurt for a couple of games, and Chris Middleton and the supporting cast were able to step up, and that's just not what we saw last season. Okay, that wraps up our weekly bullet points there. Let's move on quickly. I want to wrap up the show here with just some FIBA World Cup talk. Like I said at the beginning of the show, this started kind of last night in the Philippines. The FIBA World Cup features tons of teams from across the world. Right now is in group stage play. The group stage play, winner of each group will advance onto the knockout stage. And then I believe the two best teams the two best records after that also advance. We could talk more about that on a later show, but basically all I wanted to do here is with these games starting, we got a couple of days where there will be just group stage play. Each team will play a few games. If you have insomnia and you're up at 3 a.m. and you want to turn on basketball, you have that option. These games will also likely be rebroadcasted at times throughout the regular, throughout the day.
Normal hours.
Throughout normal hours. And Team USA, also you can see them play against New Zealand for the first time tomorrow at 7:40 a.m. If you want to wake up on a Saturday at 7:40 a.m., you can go for it. They will play New Zealand. So that's their first game. Some games, like I said, already been played. We've seen Karl Anthony Towns. We've seen Nikola Vucevic. But that's what I want to do right now is run through, tell you some teams and some players that you may not have known, NBA players that are actually on those teams competing for a chance to win the FIBA World Cup right now. So we're just going to kind of rattle through it. We can give some thoughts here. But like I said, whole point is just to give you an idea. Dominican Republic has Karl Anthony Towns. That we talked about this at the top, Matt. You were surprised. Did not realize that. Yeah, people didn't realize it, but he's there, and they won their first game. He had a big performance. So if you want to see just cat cook, turn on the Dominican Republic. The Philippines have Jordan Clarkson of the Utah Jazz. He'll be featured for them. They're the home team.
Really didn't realize that one.
Yeah, didn't know that one. China actually has Kyle Anderson So slow-mo, he's also there for
Sure.
you. Serbia. Serbia features Bogdan Bogdanovic, Nikola Jovic on the Miami Heat, not Jokic, even though
Not to be
Nikola
confused
Jokic.
with the MVP.
Yes, the MVP was going to play, but he's not playing, and he would be
He
in
shouldn't.
Serbia if he was.
He
But
shouldn't.
yeah, Jovic. So don't get him mistaken. And then Poku, Alexei Pokusevsky, who's on the Oklahoma City Thunder. He's just a fascinating skinny man. If he was in your door at night and the lights were off, it would look like Slender Man. It would be scary. But he is a very interesting player and would dominate overseas before he came to the NBA. So just another name to watch. South Sudan. Carlik Jones, G League MVP, Chicago Bulls player technically right now until they waive his contract. Won the G League MVP last year. Carlik Jones is on South Sudan, along with Wennon Gabriel, play a little bit for the Lakers. Lithuania. If you turn on a Lithuania game, you'll see Jonas Valanciunas. That's the only NBA player on that team, just dominating. Just everything through Jonas.
Everything goes through him.
Everything goes through Jonas Valanciunas. So if you're a Pelicans fan, you're like, there's not enough Jonas, then turn on a Lithuania game. Montenegro, Nikola Vucevic. So Chicago Bulls, Vuce. He played his first game, like I said earlier in the show, against Mexico already. Posted 27 points, a couple of blocks. Did what he needed to do, and I was a little worried during the preseason games. They're like the exhibition games. Vooch wasn't doing much out there, but I think he didn't have his foot on the gas, so he looked pretty dominant against Mexico. Australia, a bunch of NBA players for you to watch on the Australian team. They're always a fun team to watch too in the Olympics, and
they're always pretty good, right?
Yeah, for sure.
They're always one of the better teams.
Yeah, they're always one of the better teams. They've been good in the FIBA World Cup in the past. They've been good in the Olympics. So, and this Australian team in particular is an exciting one. They got Josh Giddey for Oklahoma City, great passer, somebody who is a rising young talent. So I'm excited to watch him on this squad because he should have a very high usage rating. A lot of offense should be running through him. Josh Green from the Dallas Mavericks, Joe Ingles, who's now on the Orlando Magic, oddly enough. Of course, Patty Mills, an Australian GOAT, Matisse Thybulle, Jock Landell, and there's actually several more. I'm not going to name them because some of them are
solid team.
Some of them are just lesser names who aren't going to be clocking many minutes on NBA teams. But you can look up the Australian roster. I recommend it. And if you have a game, if it's just randomly on, turn it on because you'll recognize most of the people on the floor. And shout out Luke Longley for paving the way. The Chicago Bull legend paving the way for Australian hoops. Okay, next team, Finland. Your boy Lauri Markkanen is out there for Finland, and he's always dominated on the international stage, and then he finally replicated that in the NBA last season, and I'm sure he'll continue to do that for Finland this year. Germany has the Wagner brothers, Franz and Mo.
Nice. Makes sense.
Yeah, Dennis Schroeder, and who's now a Toronto Raptor, and then Daniel Theis, former Bulls
legend.
Daniel Theis is a fun player, man. I actually think he should be playing.
He should have stayed. The Bulls should have kept him.
Yeah, because I actually think that I think Billy knew how to use, or I just think that the team kind of knew how to use him. Japan has Yuta Watanabe, so he's now a shooter on the Phoenix Suns, but he played for the Brooklyn Nets last year, and he was one of the best shooters in the league. Shot over 40% from three. And he was always a solid three-point shooter, but he just took a leap last year that was insane. He was shot 45% from three or something. It was ridiculous. But he's on Japan. Slovenia, of course, has Luka. That's it. And
that's all they need.
All you need. That is all you need. Luka if you watch Luka on the Mavs and you're impressed, watch Luka for Slovenia because it's just
it's even more of just him doing it all.
It's just even crazier because you just know that you don't know anyone around him and these guys are not NBA players and he's just still dominating. Mm-hmm. So Slovenia is always a great team to watch, and they're going to be, because of Luka, one of the favorites to go pretty far. All right, last three teams here. Latvia has Davis Bertans. In case you're Latvia, if
my Davis Bertans fix.
Yeah, if you need some Davis Bertans action, turn on Latvia. And I think Kristaps Porzingis would have been playing for them, but he's got the
not anymore.
Yeah,
not this year.
He's got the injury, so he sat out. All right, last two. Canada has a bunch of NBA players. Canada's also very good this year. They do not have Jamal Murray. If they did, they would be even better. However, he is not participating, and he wrote kind of a
can't blame him.
note. Yeah. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, RJ Barrett, Lou Dort, Dylan Brooks, Nikhil Alexander-Walker, Kelly Olynyk, Dwight Powell. Canada's got a stacked team. That is like a good group, especially SGA and RJ Barrett. I mean, and then Lou Dort, obviously defensively, having Dort and Dylan Brooks, like they're a well-rounded team, and they're expected to make a run here and be, they're young guys, so expected to be in the mix for like the Olympics coming up and events after that. Lastly, France, Frank Ntilikina, Rudy Gobert, Evan Fournier, and Nick Batum. So France also obviously is.
They're always really good.
Always very good. Always a favorite to be right in the mix. So there you go. That's all I want to do. We don't need to continue. I just wanted to give everybody a rundown of NBA players. Hopefully you were taking some mental notes, and now when a game comes on, then there's going to be some NBA players there for you to watch, because at least there's basketball on TV. There's going to be basketball.
It's better than not.
It's better than not, and I will be watching it. Even though college football also starts week 0 this week, I will definitely be flipping back and forth for some FIBA and some probably crappy college football games, because they never put the great games on for week 0.
Week 0 is always tough. I'm a Notre Dame fan. We got a game this week, so that's nice.
There you go.
The other games, but even that's like, it's Notre Dame Navy. They should win that game by 21 points.
I mean, I think the spread's
it's better than nothing.
The spread's what? The spread's probably
20. They're minus 20.5.
Yeah,
so that's one of the that's one of the better games.
But knowing Notre Dame, also nobody would be shocked if it's the fourth quarter and that game's like 7.
That's always a weird. That's just Notre Dame Navy is always a weird game that somehow is close going into
the closer.
But hey, if you're looking for some college football content right here on the BetSperts Media YouTube channel, if you're watching, in about 9 minutes we're starting our Pac-12 preview show. So we're coming with you to that. USC plays this weekend. They're a Pac-12 team. Should be a fantastically fun conference.
Awesome. Yeah, you can just follow go to YouTube, follow the BetSperts Media page. You can watch all the shows live there. You can also
sign up for live notifications whenever we go live, which we do a lot. We got a lot of great content on this channel between us, between the deep dive, all the golf shows. The golf guys are killing it this year. I'm not sure if you track their bets. They're crushing. They're crushing it this year.
The golf guys, BetSperts Golf is some of the best golf content that you're going to get out there. Also, if we just want to quickly throw out a plug for 4 for 4 fantasy football, I have a draft coming up. I have 2 drafts this weekend. Got another draft. So 4 for 4 I'm using. You can go to their website. Just go to 4for4.com.
I think they have a discount. Don't quote me on this. I think they have a discount going on through the end of the week. So if you are a fantasy football going on, they have the best rankings, projections, all that stuff.
Yeah, even if you haven't heard of them, like if you just look up they have, I promise you that they have some of the most accurate preseason rankings for fantasy that you'll see. So that's good.
Win your league, win your league, and the subscription will pay for itself.
Oh yeah, for sure. And lastly, of course, just you're probably, if you're listening to this, then you might already, but Apple or Spotify, just subscribe on there, and also dropping a rating always helps as we try to grow this thing a little
5 stars.
The NBA season starts. 5, yeah. Let's not do anything below that. Maybe 6 even if it's
if they let you. I don't think they let you.
No, they don't. All right. Thank you everybody for listening. Good luck in any fantasy football drafts that you may have. Matt, good luck talking about the Pac-12, and I will go watch some FIBA World Cup action. Bye everybody.